Okay. We're live, just so you know. I'm alive, you're alive, we're live.
We're live.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. This is Casey, my dear beloved sister. I love you. And you're all the way across in New Jersey right now, and I'm in San Francisco today. And I just wanted to have a little moment with you because, we've known each other in a variety of different ways. We met through yoga, but we knew from the first moments of meeting each other that we had a mutual passion for neuroscience and how the energetic systems work. And I've known you throughout the years to go really deep into nutrition yourself, and also to go really deep into the understandings of ritual and ceremony and bringing meaning into our lives in ways that can be overlooked as mundane, but also are not. They are the moments that matter. And I wanted to say to people too that I love you so much that any chance I get to spend with you, in fact, I make up reasons to spend with you often. And one of them is that some people know, and I'm not always talking about it, but I have a pretty serious pelvic floor issue that I still work with to this day for at least the last 10 years. But truth be known, I think I've had it for a really long time. Just didn't know it. And way beyond that. And I have learned from Casey more about how to work with strength training and how to work with it in a way that's in the yogic context, since I'm such a passionate yogini and she is too. So I wanted to just say, Casey, I know you understand the necessity of neuroscience and the breath and why the two are just so important. Will you just say anything about it?
Yeah. I love spending time with you as well, Tara, whether we're across the world or across the country or in your home. We could spend days and days and days and days together and it wouldn't get old, I'm sure. So I'm glad to have this moment with you to discuss our passions in such a way and be able to share it with everybody else. And neuroscience to me is a beautiful art form. And the art of neuroscience is life, is vitality to me. And I was always fascinated in neuroscience and molecules and chemistry and biology. It just made so much sense to me. It gave me a sense of connection and a sense of understanding of the world around me, starting from, a very young age, and then in high school when you could take the more fun, AP biology and chemistry classes. And so I followed that through college to study forensics and neuroscience. And then coincidentally or synchronistically, I got my first concussion. And so now this academic accolade of interest and curiosity became real, really, really real. And from that first concussion experience, I had a really awful experience with a neurologist, unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time. And it was a very Western model of how to handle this situation. And the answer from that perspective was, here's some pills and you should probably stop dancing. And as a professional dancer, that just crushed my soul. Mm-hmm. I was like, no. And, people had always said in the past, oh, well, you have your fallback, right? As a performer, an artist, or someone doing something non-traditional. Back then it was, oh, well, what's your fallback, And I was going to school to be a neuroscientist, neurologist maybe, or a specialist of that sort. And so everyone's like, oh, well, that's fine. You have your academics to fall back on. And when it came to that point of, oh, use your fallback, having someone verbalize it to you, I realized so deeply, like, no, that was not an option. That was just keeping everyone happy. And I was doing it for the other people to say that, oh yeah, I have a fallback ready. But deep down, that wasn't my fallback. Like, I'm a dancer through and through, and you are not going to stop me. And so that really empowered me to find alternative ways to deal with my neurological issues without taking the vertigo pills and stop dancing. Because we all know that that's not the issue. We all are dancing. And so that was very, very strong course of action on my end, because in New York City, New Jersey at that time, like 2009 maybe ish, it wasn't really open, or all these alternative medicines, which is actually the original medicine, were not very well practiced on the East Coast. So I didn't have anyone to really turn to. So I had to turn to myself and a neurochiropractor who I worked with who does a lot more manual work. He was my saving grace and showed me that through physical practices and following your finger and doing these seemingly silly, mundane things are incredibly profound. And I felt and watched these changes in my brain happen back to health.
Now, I want to speak to that because you even did this kind of thing is used in EMDR training, right? And really powerful ways of somatically reintegrating systems therapeutically, but also it's working with the idea of bilateral movements and training the hemispheres of the brain. And I know that you also trained with me, and I've trained with you in different ways over the years now. And we both know the value of doing movement patterns that are specifically working with eye movement patterns and body movement patterns that are recalibrating, those hemispheres. So I want to just ask, I know you've worked with this for a long enough time now, where you've had to come out of the concussion stage and go into really working with how to keep things sustainable. So can you speak to that a little bit too? Because that's a big part that matters to me a lot, is helping people understand that these things can be sustainable. It doesn't mean you can't work, you don't have to work at it. Yes, you do. You have to commit. You have to make it lifestyle, is the truth. But it can be sustainable in how it sustains, in how it supports.
Yes, that's an excellent point, because to this very day, this week, I've been reanalyzing how I'm going about my post-concussive symptoms and how to move forward, because there's layers.
Yeah.
There are so many layers. And even, what are we, 13, 14 years later, I am still working with my concussive symptoms.
Yeah.
I've also gotten about 4 more concussions since then. So there's lots of lessons in that. And it's not, put yourself in rehab or therapy for 6 weeks and then you're good to go. You can go back to your old way.
Which is what they tell you.
Which is what they tell you.
Yeah.
And in the Western medicine world, and realizing that there's pre and post support that is very much needed. And I have created that pre and post support for myself and sought out the resources and people who could help me in that area. Yeah. And it came from a very intuitive place.
I want to say something about that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to slide it in there a little, because some people know in my life, some don't, that my son suffered not just one, but we think probably 2 pretty important big concussions, like actual concussions, one being in kindergarten. And then one happened recently, only a few months ago. And exactly what you said, they gave 6-week protocol for you to get through it. Then it's like, all right, you're good to go. Well, my experience is I did not see that. I mean, we're realizing that there were things that impacted him that way back then that probably have been acting out since then. And it just took a while to figure it out that's what it was. And the thing that I want to speak to this about is that a lot of people have had concussions and have no idea that they ever had one. And their kids got him at school, because I got to tell you, when he got his at school, they said, well, we always say it all the time. Like they were like, we say it all the time, like no big deal. And I was thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Do you know what this has done? I can tell you as a mom, I know what this has done, but they really try to downplay it. And I'm just saying this not to damage anything with this, but just to say, I think that when we understand that concussion's a trauma, and it creates a trauma response in the body that lingers. And it lingers on a neurobiological level. It lingers on many levels. So I love that you bring this piece, and you understand yoga, and you understand breath work, and you understand these more holistic and very ancient somatic practices that have helped you the most.
And thank you for mentioning that, because my first concussion, my roommates at the time, because I was like, no, I'm fine. I was totally that person, like tough through it. And my roommates were like, your eyes are dilating funny. We're taking you to Lenox Hill Hospital. The hospital, they looked at me, they put the light in your eyes, and I think like up my nose. And then they said, well, you're not blacked out, so we can't help you. They charged me $100 and sent me home. So for 3 months, I was running around New York City, performing in an off-Broadway show, traveled to Vegas, flashing lights, everything. And then literally my body and brain crashed 3 months later. And that's how I found out.
Wow.
And so the recovery was a bit longer. And since it sat for 3 months, who knows what kind of other things stirred up from that. But even when you get a brain injury or not, or have some trauma, the body responds. It doesn't know necessarily that you got a concussion. It does, but end of the day, the body goes into a trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes on high alert. You're in a sympathetic state.
Mm-hmm.
Inflammation occurs to help protect and possibly heal, does what it can. Your vagal tone will decrease when you're in a sympathetic state. Mm-hmm. The vagus nerve, the vagabond wanderer, right, goes from the brain down deep into all the organs of the stomach. Mm-hmm. Gut issues? Why do I have gut issues? Mm-hmm. Where's it all coming from? Oh, stress. You know, you're in college, you're doing research, you're studying, you're doing blah, 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 stress.
But even that is something not to go to, because, okay, yes, we all have stress. But if your body is getting to the point where it's showing symptomology because of the stress, then something needs to shift. You need to learn how to work with stress in a new and different way, right? It's not just, you write it off as stress and walk away.
Right. And so through, years of feeling this and then studying with you and the yoga therapy and traveling the world now and having a really deep connection to my own neurobiology, plus all of this academic research and things on the outside, I have developed my own way of understanding and am able to share that now with others, right? But it comes down to that vagus nerve. If there's very little vagal tone, you're in a sympathetic state. The food that we eat to nourish ourselves to help bring down the inflammation in the brain, that connection's not there. Mm-hmm. And whether you get a concussion or not, whether you have trauma mentally, physically, long-term, short-term, maybe even at birth, the body's response is still sympathetic state. Mm-hmm. So how do we tell the brain, tell the body that everything's okay? We breathe.
Yeah. So here's, yes, we take a breath, like right now. Mm-hmm. And a breath sometimes with sound, right? Like you don't have to just hold it all in, right? It's like,
yeah.
Go ahead, please.
The breath work, there's many traditional ways of breath work in different lineages and like really modern fun ones now and different things. And they're all, I think, leading up to the same mountain, depending on where someone is at and which perspective works best for that person. And to really learn, right? I love learning the structure of things and and the science, because that intellectually satisfies the mind. I'm a very head-heavy person and I like to understand everything. And so to get into my body, I first have to kind of rationalize it in my brain. Mm-hmm. And once my brain is at an understanding, then it can release itself and now I can drop into the body. And in the body is where the trauma is stored, and we can work with that. We can change that. We can drop our brain waves through our breath to get into that autonomic system, to get into that subconscious place and make those changes on a deep cellular level. Our cells are created and being destroyed all the time. Our DNA is unraveling and raveling back up to make new. When that DNA strand unravels and it's time to replicate to make a new cell or express a new gene, we have a choice. Mm-hmm. And if we are in a safe, relaxed space, that choice is going to be for our advantage. It's going to adapt us to the environment inside and around us. If we are in a stressful state, well, it's not time to explore something new and be creative. It's time to do exactly what we used to do because that's familiar and safe. So even on a cellular level, our cells are responding and feeling if we are feeling safe or scared. It's a very sensitive vibration. And you know that if you're around kids or babies, they can pick up on our sensations way faster than an adult. And
they're very attuned to the sound and frequency through voice too. I mean, tone of voice to a child is really a big deal.
It is.
I mean, it's to us too. We just bypass ourselves a lot as adults. I'm not saying I'm doing that. I am sometimes, but I'm saying my intention is not to, because I realize like that mattered, that way, that those intonations, that tells us a lot of information, and it's really worth listening to and honing as a skill.
It is. And that sensitivity, the more sensitive we become, it sounds like, oh, I'm so sensitive. That sounds like a bad thing when people say that. Mm-hmm. When you're more sensitive, you're more attuned to your 5 physical senses and the internal sensations of your own vibration. And then you can really feel alignment or out of alignment.
I want to add that, yeah, and beyond the five senses, it opens us up to other realms. I like to think of the senses as an entryway in to other realms, other levels of connectivity that really is like how we can gain access to spirit level. It's not just about like earthly sensations. Like it's a real vehicle for depth and true connection at a whole other level. So I've found that going into the senses, cultivating awareness, cultivating a deeper relationship with each of them has actually served me well to be much more skilled in my body, but also way more connected to a sense of source that's way big and supportive and holding us, you know?
Yeah.
So it's both. Yeah. And, you know, some of the traditions say not to do it that way, but I have found that doing it in that practice in those particular ways works really well.
It does. And this is where the practicality comes in, because in the world that we live in now, we can't deny we are on earth, and we have senses and we have a body. So to pretend we don't and try to go to some other realm, unless you are a monk or something, that may work for you, but we are householders.
Yeah.
And I personally, I love being on earth and I appreciate being around others and all of that. And so I have to be able to go there, and I also have to be able to be here. And that is a very hard practice. It's a lot easier to just be here and not think about out there, right? Keep your blinders on and stay in your lane. Go on autopilot. It's so easy. You don't have to think. You just go and go and go. It's not very rewarding.
For some people, I find it's so much easier for them to be out there, and to be in a body is just like the hardest thing ever.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's either or, right? Yeah. Versus being that transition, that dance between the two, that's the practice, right? You can, and now when we practice that in a yoga practice or a movement practice, we could do our goblet squats, and then we can stop, and then we can do our bent over rows. Great, cool. That's a good structure to have. Now I understand where I'm at. Now, if we put that together and we do a squat and press, we've just made it more complex, and that transition is very important. We have to stay connected from the bottom of the squat all the way to the top and release it from out to the top of our head and our body.
Because with breath. With breath. And ideally have the breath moving us through the postural expression. Yeah.
And that is the yoga asana is, again, a wonderful conscious practice. People think of yoga as maybe just stretching, right? Or just the breath work. It's the combination and being able to dance between the two. Those are the transitions of being able to see the larger perspective and also go into the minute and observe and use. We have executive functioning in our frontal lobe. Let's use it. We are gifted to have that. And so we have this ability to go between the two. But like you said, sometimes people just want to be out there and stay out there. And some people find it easier to stay here and just be in this moment. But we've got such a wide range. And that is like the range of vibration, the range of like wavelength of light. We can dance along this whole spectrum where we're maybe using like this much of it.
Right.
And that comes back to the brain, because again, our brain's capabilities, we're not using all of it. That's for sure. And we can change those and connections and create more connections in our brain and utilize. It's 13 pounds, you know, and we.
For yourself. I'm just kidding.
Got like wet too, but, that increased ability of cognitive function allows us to sense a broader perspective across the spectrum from these five senses and beyond.
And when we recognize we're not just operating from this brain, but we really recognize the heart brain, we really recognize the pelvic neuroconnectivity that is like another brain as well. It's totally different experience when you're linking them all up. And I know, we talk about this endlessly. We share our inspirations and our the things we're learning from our own practices often. I want to say that we could talk forever because we love it and we always can. But I wanted to just also say to people that I'm so blessed to have you coming into teaching a part, at least a fabulous part of the Reset and Renew program that I have coming up. And we're going to close the doors for signing up for the program tomorrow night, which is July 9th, Sunday night at midnight. But we're not starting the program until July 18th. And though I'm leading the majority of it, I'm making sure to bring you in because even when we dialogue about these things, it gets so juicy and helpful. But we're also going to bring in some practices that are really beautiful and specific to what Casey has found is most useful for people. And I got to say, I mean, you're one of my go-to people to share with, to collaborate with always when it comes to all of this, because of your vast knowledge and great deep intuition combined. So, so I just want everyone to know, if you're interested, go to my website, Terra, Terra, terrawellness.com/reset. terrawellness.com/reset. And Casey, how can people find you? Because you also have a wonderful newsletter you put out. I put mine out, you put yours out. We're always checking it out.
Yeah. A great way to find me is my website, and it's www.caseymauro.com. And also, I do post a bit on Instagram, and my handle is Casey_Mauro, spelled the same way. And my program is called Bereave, Move, Recover. So if you look that up as well, you'll find me. And so if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them what I can. And I am so excited to be a part of this program with you, Tara, because I'm probably going to learn even more from you. Not probably, I will. And so that's exciting on my end. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. I love you. And thank you for taking time today. I know you got a lot going with your amazing family out there.
Thanks. So good to see you, Tara.
Good to see you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for even tapping in and having a moment with us. Have a good one. Bye.